Hello, everybody. Welcome to the TechRaptor podcast. I am Robert Scarpanito, your features editor.
Andrew Rodden, editor-in-chief.
Rutledge Doggett, site founder.
Andrew Stretch, the Babylon editor.
How's that fall going?
Oh, it's falling.
Oh, boy, it is.
So you're an editor in what sense? Like on the game or our writings about it?
Dude, I don't know. My jokes don't need to make sense. They're not even funny half the time.
At least
Don't
he's
read
right
into
about
it.
that. At least he's right about that, yeah. Before we get into the show, I think it would be wrong not to mention the crisis that's happening in Ukraine right now. I'm sure you've probably heard about it if you're watching any news for the past 2 weeks or so. Of course, there's a big effect of it. It has a big effect on the game industry as well. The game industry is doing a lot of stuff in relation to that crisis. So if you want to read any of those things, you can check them out at our site, techraptor.net. We have a lot of stories going on about all the different companies that are changing their ways a little bit in relation to all of it. But I think for us here, you probably don't need 3.5 white men to tell you their thoughts about this war that's happening. But we just thought it'd be wrong to not mention those stories off the top. So please check them out, on our site if you want to be a little more informed about what's been going on and the impact it's been having on the games industry. But for now, let's get into some other news. Nobody wants to work at Quantic Dream. Period. End of story. No, they're the ones working on Star Wars Eclipse, that upcoming, I guess, game. It's hard to call a Quantic Dream game a game, if I'm being honest.
They're games. Let's be fair. I'm all for ripping on Quantic Dream, but they're games.
Okay, fair. But yeah, they revealed Star Wars Eclipse at the Game Awards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Game Awards 2021.
Mm-hmm.
World premiere.
Yeah, and now, some stories or some reports are coming out where they're having trouble finding more talent, and it's to the point where they might have to delay the release of the game. Not that we have a release window, if I remember right, but
No.
it might get pushed out because they don't have enough people who want to work on it.
Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hear David Cage is a really swell guy. Fun to work with.
All I will ever remember about him now is that when he was testifying about the allegations against him and his conduct at work, which was abhorrent, he ran out of court crying.
Yeah.
And that's factual.
Manly tears, though.
That's right.
Yes.
So if you want to work for him, go apply at Quantic Dream.
If you're unaware, David Cage is actually apparently kind of a not
piece of
great
shit
person. That is one way to put it too. Apparently he's not a great person to be working with or for. Definitely big auteur energy, but also misogynist and also chauvinist. So I don't think it's surprising necessarily that the studio is having trouble finding people to work.
Yeah, he made a bunch of homophobic stuff around the workplace, like misogynistic stuff. So and now that's out there, and then they're not the only ones. Like it was, Activision Blizzard said they're having difficulty hiring people now. It's like, weird.
Yeah,
only you would have done something about it sooner.
It's really cool to see a lot of kind of a lot of not only in tech but in gaming. There's that kind of perception about like this is a place people want to be. The people who are interested will want to get in, will want to do it, will often, give concessions to be part of making a video game, like the big mystery or grandeur being a fan turned developer. So it's neat to see people, it's a chooser's market. Like you can not have to work with a shitty, known misogynist. You can probably find a better job elsewhere.
Yep.
And it's nice to see this actually coming back to Quantic Dream, not just something that they can brush under the rug, but like, oh, this is like affecting them. I'm not 100% sure where the number came from. I think it was from Tom Henderson, the idea that kind of the projected window for Star Wars Eclipse now maybe back into like 2026, 2027.
Yeah, I think on our story it's 27 to 28, which is
that's it.
wild. Yeah, like that's a 6 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, like at that point, I guess, if they were still in trying to hire for the team, it seems weird that they would have put out a teaser so early, very reminiscent of well-known title Mass Effect Andromeda, which I believe we also saw for like 2 or 3 years in a row with like just concept art and developers talking about how great the game was going to be.
Now that's that other Star Wars spinoff, right?
And you saw a lot of high-profile developers leaving BioWare at the time too, so that definitely probably impacted the overall dev. I mean, it's like you said. I think it's an employees market right now. A lot of companies are calling it the Great Resignation, which, at the end of the day, I think a lot of workers are realizing that the power's in their hands, which is a good thing. Like at the end of the day, the companies should not be feeling complacent because people will still come to work for them if they're not a good place to work.
I mean, it all boils down to like that Seymour Skinner meme of like, is it me that's doing something wrong? No, it's the children. The companies might call it the Great Resignation, but then if they looked internally and, well, why are they resigning? Is it that we're not paying a livable wage? We're not increasing wages according to inflation? Is it that, the guy who runs the ship, hates half of the population of the Earth because of what they have, because of what they have going on? Like it's a very easy thing to be able to look at, and see that pattern of, if everywhere you walk smells like dog shit, then look under your shoe.
It can't be you. No way.
No.
Well, yeah, because the developers, they're wrong.
Yeah. David Cage is in the right for sure, 100%. Don't put this out of context.
Well, the good news is that
David Cage is right. Scrappy 2022.
That's right.
That'll be the clip that I edit.
At least you
Those rage clicks.
have a good chance of you're going to another French company like Ubisoft or something. That's an option.
Yeah, that'll be better for sure. I hear Ubisoft is great to work for.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, the types of people who might be attracted to Quantic Dream for the storytelling and the writing aspect, boy, Ubisoft needs some help there.
That's true.
I mean, I think part of it too is a generational thing. I think that we're starting to see a shift in who's joining the game industry at this point, and there's very different values and priorities.
These goddamn Zoomers.
It all comes back to the Zoogles. Is that what you said?
That's right.
Yeah. So I think we're seeing the landscape change, hopefully for the better. But with companies like Blizzard and Ubisoft, Riot, and a lot of these that still have these deep issues that have not been resolved and that they don't seem to care to want to resolve at times. I think stories like this with Quantic Dream, where, you're publicly having to admit that because your culture is so shitty, no one wants to work for you. Hopefully it's a wake-up call to not only game industry companies, but, companies worldwide. It's a huge issue that companies hold all of the power when it comes to employment and, the anti-union rhetoric that we're seeing at like Geo Media. That's, one of our counterparts in the industry. Something's got to change at some point because at the moment things are reaching kind of a tipping point. And I think that's why you're seeing the quote unquote Great Resignation is people are like, fuck this, I'm done.
It's also cool to see it at a company at this level. Like you said, we've had all the Activision, Blizzard, King stuff, but when you see it at that large a level, a lot of it is, Kodak's got his golden parachute and no one's going to be any the wiser. If you see something like this happen at an indie company and everyone gets out, you think that's awesome. Good job on them for taking the stand. Kind of seeing it at like for lack of a better term, like a AA studio, like Quantic Dream. It kind of, might help the people at a larger AA, a AAA studio be like, wait, no, hold on. Like, we don't have to just think that like, the man is up there, and like definitely, I'm chatting shit from a podcast that I do as a side job. So I know, when you take livelihood into account and this and that, it's very difficult to say, no, I wouldn't like a paycheck. but it's nice to see it shifting, not just on the small level, but this attitude and this standing up for oneself becoming a larger and larger story. And for news like this to break and become so public, to be like, ooh, that's not looking good.
Yeah, I think this is just Quantic Dreams getting its just desserts, and it's nice that it's kind of an organic punishment. Like, it doesn't feel like one that's being meted out by some, like, a government or a higher power or something. But this is just, okay, the people don't want this. You know, the people, the proletariat, right? Like, they don't want this, therefore they're not going to work for you and make your company work.
It's right? David Cage in the upper left-hand corner of his view, so everyone will remember that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's nice to see that, like, someone like Cage before, like, there was, well, before these stories broke out, which I think was 2018 is when it came out, the big story on Quantic Dream. But before that, I think there was, stuff with, like, Beyond Two Souls and Heavy Rain, where people were unhappy with the way he had done stuff, but it was kind of brushed off as like, oh, he's an auteur, he's just one of those guys. And it's like, no, like, just because you're a creative person doesn't mean you get to be a fucking prick.
It was Beyond Two Souls with the famously fully naked model of Elliot Page.
When
that respectful game.
They did not know that was going to happen and didn't want it. Yeah. And it's like, man,
Yeah, David Cage kind of sucks. And even if you play some of his games, like, they're, it's framed in a way that's like, I'm telling this big story that's so good that it might go over your head. So pay attention to every little thing. And it's like, no, I get it. Androids are a race. This is class division and racial discrimination. Like, yeah, it's pretty on the nose, buddy. I get it.
Oh, that's what that was about?
I know.
I thought it was about robots being silly.
Well, it's
just
about the
goofy
iPhone.
Robots.
It's an allegory about the iPhone. Yeah.
Oh,
right.
okay.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's so on the nose with that sort of stuff where it's like, this isn't that clever. Like, you don't have to tell the best story to be a good game or even a good story, right? But, like, they're not worth the auteurism, the auteur energy that he sometimes has.
Well, and I think part of my point was nothing is. And I think that's what people are realizing. It's like,
yes,
you're not.
It's like that feeling that you're getting talked down to.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't know. There's just this. There's this romanticization of this, like, creative people that do have interesting ideas, because you could say, like, do they land with Quantic Dreams games? Not really most of the time, but there's usually something interesting behind it. You're like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like, I remember Heavy Rain coming out and being like, well, that's kind of fucking crazy, but that's not worth it. Like, you don't have to put yourself through being around a prick all the time just because you think he is interesting.
Yeah.
We really like you, though, Rut.
Wink. He just did a wink to the camera for those who aren't watching the video version of this podcast. That doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Yeah.
But if you're watching on YouTube,
Auden gets his iToy working.
Yeah, if you're on YouTube, though, we love you. Please subscribe.
Someday
we'll get your iToy view.
Well, I do it and I looked for it and it wasn't where I thought, so I had to go look again. Maybe I'll just order one. It's got on eBay.
Or hey, if anyone out there has a spare iToy laying around, you can send it to our P.O. box.
Yes, e-begging for an iToy camera. That's the long con. That's what TechRaptor was set up to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're only in this for the iToys.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, if you do find that Warcraft 3 picture, feel free to send it.
No.
Okay, and here's a little follow-up from last week. Last week we talked about how Square Enix was a little bit disappointed in the sales of Guardians of the Galaxy. Are you okay?
I just think that's funny in comparison to what we were talking about last week, to how Square Enix's published games have gone this week.
Yeah.
Well, hey, it's still too early to tell. Babylon's Fall could sell millions by next week.
It's true, it could.
It could. It won't, but it could.
If it can fit 5 or 6 updates in before that time, sure.
Yeah. But now it's been announced that Guardians of the Galaxy will be coming to Xbox Game Pass. Now, Stretch, do you have anything you want to say just here off the... Yeah, I'm giving you the soapbox if you...
Yeah, I mean, I feel obligated. We got to push it to you when it's about Game Pass, right? That's in our contract somewhere.
Right.
Well,
This
I mean,
week's
I
ad
don't
is
know
brought
what
to you by
contract.
Games Pass.
I
mean, it is just such a funny twist to see it go from this is a failure to this is a thing that's happening. I believe Marvel's Avengers is also on Game Pass right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Game Pass might just be the place that Square Enix starts sending things that they think are dead, or depending on whatever the publishing deal is in the background. Like, for it might be a viable strategy for making money if they can make all that they want off the first year, 6 months worth of sales, and then sell this highly commercially successful, well, not critically successful, definitely not commercially successful.
According
if
to
they
Square
can
Enix
sell this
standards.
critically acclaimed game to Game Pass and happen to get some other big bump on numbers, I think that's not only great for Square Enix as a company, it might mean that they take better risks going forward. But kind of allowing them to, as a company, Square Enix as an entity, to have a safety net. But it's also it's just a really fun game. I know the first podcast that we talked about, Guardians of the Galaxy, you guys really sold me on it, and I immediately turned around and played it. And I'll probably pick it up and play it again. Wow, that's a lie. I've got way too many games going on.
Yeah, it's
This
March,
has been a
buddy.
stacked month.
Yeah, I was like,
Oh boy.
See, what I find so funny is you're saying all these things about oh yeah, this must be the place where Square Enix can throw their disappointments and failures onto the pile and hope that it gets a second life. And Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13 is also on this list of games coming in March.
I was getting to that. Yeah, because Final Fantasy 13 and 13-2 are also on it right now. But it was 2 years ago. They were boom, every single Final Fantasy is going to be on Game Pass. And that was a bit of a monkey paw promise, because a couple of Final Fantasy games have dropped off and then come back and then dropped off again.
Well, don't forget that Gabe Newell recently said that he would be fine having Game Pass come to the Steam
on
Deck.
Steam.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think
Which
you can
would be
already be on
huge.
Steam Deck. You just install Windows, but
Yeah, but just as part of the platform would be oh my
That'd be
gosh.
cool.
yeah, but that's he's angling that. He's got a, you know why he's saying that, right? He's saying it because he's very pro Linux gaming, and if he can get Microsoft into making something that promotes Linux gaming stuff and make people optimizing a game for Linux, that's what he says his big angle with that is sure, come to this, and then I'll force you guys to spend a bunch of money to make stuff work on Linux.
Oh yeah, for all 7 of those gamers. Got it.
Yeah, that's what their Valve's big thing. Gabe's real into that.
that would still be a really cool thing. I enjoy the freedom to hop between my PC playing games and my Xbox playing games, so being able to have that more integrated through Steam would be dope. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that I could get a Steam achievement and an Xbox achievement at the same time. Whoa, Nelly. That's going to be pretty cool.
Calm down,
100%
Stretch.
Halo Infinite on 2 platforms.
At the same time.
Yeah.
I guess, and also in other Game Pass news, which is really cool, Microsoft Flight Simulator is available via the cloud now.
So you can fly in the cloud.
Well, that means that Xbox Ones can now... So the Xbox One, the now, 10-year-old console?
I think so, yeah.
Well, it's getting up there. Can play in 4K, full, real-time weather effects, gorgeous ray tracing, everything. And, Microsoft Flight Sim is already an online game, because you need it for, all of the data to be updated. But to not have to install the 250 gigabytes or so,
God, it's humongous.
And to just play on that 10-year-old console is honestly a little bit ludicrous.
That's pretty wild. The promises and the idea of cloud gaming are amazing whenever it gets fully realized.
Yeah, still waiting for Starlink to really get us there.
Right.
But it's so neat.
You know, I am genuinely excited about Lightning Returns hitting the. I'm not even kidding. I'm kind of excited about that because it's such a bad video game that I want to It's like watching The Room again, you know? Like, it's one of those kind of things. But I get to do it for free. Asterisk.
You know what's funny? You mentioned The Room and a Square Enix game.
Mm-hmm.
Because they made or published. Did they make it? I don't even know who made it. Now that I think about it, they at least published it. They made The Quiet Man.
Ah, yeah, The Room of video games.
The Quiet Man. Not only is it The Room of video games, or they wanted it to be. They put out a trailer with all of the bad reviews, trying to make it into The Room of video games.
Mm-hmm.
If people remember that, I think they even referenced The Room in it. And it's like,
I mean, if you know what you're about, sell it.
I mean,
people will buy it on that.
They didn't do that like on launch. They did that out after it came out, so I don't think they knew it going into it.
I'm surprised that The Room hasn't shown up on Game Pass then, let's be honest.
The Quiet Man.
Oh, sorry, The Quiet Man.
Well, The Room, too. I would love to watch The Room via Game Pass.
But it's a rhythm game for some reason, and you just play through the movie and...
Yes. God, Lightning Return. I'm telling you, if you want a bad time, please check that out. It's
well, either that or the Star Trek game from 2013 or 2014. If you want a really bad time.
I got to the final boss of 13 and just dropped it when I originally played it on 360. 13-2, I probably got like a quarter of the way through and just dropped it. Lightning Returns, I just never even bothered. These were the games that started
that one.
that started the idea of stagger systems in the Final Fantasy games.
Right. That was like the best thing of it.
I have just never gelled with the idea of the stagger system.
Oh, really?
Just like, so I've got to do a whole bunch of damage to allow myself to do a whole bunch more damage. It just seemed so weird. Like, it wasn't as... And it may just be like, it seems to me like they're overcomplicating the idea of an overshield.
Well, let's get in the weeds a little. It's like you do a lot of magic damage to stagger them, and then you do a lot of physical damage, and the physical damage is like multiplied.
Yeah.
So it's one of those like chip damage to real damage sort of systems.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the idea of like, I guess that it forces you to have to play every class in the RPG at once.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess as the type of player I am, I just always felt like that pulled me away from playing the game how I wanted to play the game. And it was like, if you want to survive, you've got to do it this way. You've got to be juggling 20 paradigms and, you know, then mostly auto battling anyway. You've just got to make sure that you're in the right paradigm at the right time.
Well, then you're going to love Lightning Returns. Because imagine all of that, but you only have one party member for the whole game. And that one party member, yeah, you only play as Lightning. And they do like some weird fighting game. Well, no, it's not a fighting game, but it's a weird, slightly different system. But she's the only one who can beat all of the roles. And you can also dress her up like a Barbie. It doesn't make sense.
No, it does make sense for what Final Fantasy 13 was.
Yeah, well, okay, because everyone loves Lightning,
just
apparently.
Lightning. That's all it was. So by Lightning Returns, they realized, all right, this is really the only thing we have going for us. So let's
At
just
the
lean
time,
into
there was
Lightning.
also like Lightning Louis Vuitton ads as well in Japan.
Lightning
which
stuff was fucking everywhere. It was crazy.
Yeah,
just how much they doubled down.
Yeah, Japan loved Lightning.
I don't even think that I mean, here's I like that in the Game Pass segment I'm about to say this, but I don't even think that Lightning has really shown up in Kingdom Hearts yet.
Yeah,
She hasn't. No. Well, I mean, no one's past 10, right? Has shown up. Like 10 is the latest.
Well, remember, like in freaking 3, there wasn't any Final Fantasy people.
Doesn't Cloud show up?
Okay, so apparently Lightning did show up in
Probably
Union X.
Okay.
Oh, as a summon medallion. That doesn't count. Never mind.
No. It's not like Sora
and...
says lightning, you know?
Yeah, we need that.
You see, that's a reference.
Okay, let's talk about some of the games we've been playing, because we've been playing a lot. Rut, do you want to start with Elex II? I feel like let's just get it out of the way.
I'll be back.
Fight.
You guys are so rude. honestly. Unbelievable.
No, but tell us about Elex II, because like the embargo's up now.
You're the one who puts out that you like stuff. It's like if
That's
you
fair.
said if you came
How
out and
dare
said
you
yeah,
like something?
it's like going, yeah, I eat shit as a snack, and then we make fun of you for it. And you're like, hey guys, that's mean. Like that's what you're doing. Just so you know.
He's in the middle of literally painting a target on his back, and he's like, "Now, guys, don't shoot me."
No, I'm sure Elex
As
2
he
is
loads
a
the gun and hands
game.
it to us. All right, I'll let you talk now.
Honestly, will you?
Even though you understand how I feel about it. You know what? No, actually, I'm going to talk about Dinosaur 4.
Oh fuck! But I mean, in all seriousness, I was a huge fan of the first game. Went in optimistic to the second one, and I mean it's on par with a lot of what Piranha makes in terms of kind of those like Euro jank stuff. I think that there's a lot that Elex does well, and then there's a fair amount at the moment that detracts from it. It's a pretty big world to explore, and honestly, the fact that there's a jetpack in it makes it like way easier to explore. You don't have to Skyrim up a mountain; you can literally just yeet up a mountain.
Wait, are you Boba Fett in this game? Are you basically?
Yeah, you can just jetpack around, and
Boy, this sounds about to be on par with the quality of the show too.
God damn it! And then you can upgrade your backpack to have more fuel capacity and basically just like glide across the map. And I'm not 100% sure why I have unlimited jetpack right now, but after I beat the game, I had no fuel limits. So I spent a couple hours just like flying around the map the other day.
That's a dirty hacker.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're a fan of kind of like, I don't know, Skyrim-esque games, doing a lot of exploration, having a lot to do, kind of agency and choice, it's a solid game. I'm not going to say it's an incredible game, but it is an enjoyable experience, and kind of the systems they build around building up your character with the attributes and the skill points, and kind of having to really plan out your stats early. Definitely adds to kind of the extra complexity, and it's not an easy game until probably level 20. Up until then, you have to be very careful about where you go, or you'll just get smacked to the ground in one hit. So I like it. I gave it a 7.5. It was enjoyable. I've put about 80 hours into it, and
God.
I definitely recommend it. I know that it's not for everyone, so it's worth going into it knowing that it's not like an incredible, perfectly polished game. There are some weird bugs.
Speaking of, how many times did you crash in that window?
Probably about 72 times over the course of a weekend, and
Wait,
only when
That's not an exaggerated
using
number either.
shotguns. I did not have a single crash if I used bows, heavy weapons, swords, any of that stuff. But the minute I started using shotguns, it caused crashing.
72?
To be fair, I played about 40 hours over the course of 3 days.
You crashed more than the number of hours you played.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it got. I mean, that was honestly probably the biggest part of the score reduction for me, was that and a couple other bugs that kind of made the game a little frustrating.
I've never had Dinosaurs for crash.
Shut up. You talked about the open world and how you could like jetpack up mountains and stuff. Is a lot of the world taking place on that surface level, like settlements, villages and stuff, or is there also like, you end up going into caves and suddenly you're in the Thieves Guild?
Yeah, there's a lot of verticality. Like, so there's two components that are pretty cool too. There's map pieces kind of hidden around the map that you have to find for a kind of an overarching quest that gives you this really nice bonus. And then there's unique weapons kind of littered around too, and a lot of those are hidden in like high to reach places. Like you can't even get one of them until you've fully upgraded your jetpack.
Or you magically get unlimited jetpack.
Well, you have to either buy or find fuel, and then you have to upgrade your jetpack, which costs money each level. And then there's also additions that let you hover so that you can like do ranged combat while you're hovering. And there's a boost one so that when you kind of jump up, you can shoot forward and based on your full fuel capacity, kind of get around the map faster, even though there are teleport pads like literally everywhere. But yeah, I mean, the jetpack gives you a lot more agency to just kind of okay, I want to get up to the top floor, fuck it, I'm just going to jetpack up rather than having to like run all the way through the building up the stairs. Like, no, that dude's up there, I'm going to fuck him up. So I think that's one of the best features.
This is just making me think, like, how many open world games have come out? And we're only like 65 days into the year. How many open world games have there been, right? Like, I didn't realize that Elex was another one. I just thought it was like RPG.
Yeah, it's very, I mean, it's very action RPG and open world. Like, open world is probably the biggest part. There's 5 different factions you can join. To join one faction, you have to betray another faction.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah, so there's like these complexities and different sub factions to each faction too. That kind of, it all ties into the story as well. So you don't have to recruit every companion. It's recommended. Every companion has a pretty long kind of storyline that you follow, love interests, all that stuff that you're kind of used to from open world and RPG games.
Who is the best waifu of the game?
I just went with the basic option of Kaya, which they made an interesting decision.
Makes sense from a Pan Am fan.
Like, so the first game you had like, I think 4 or 5 love interests, and they made an interesting decision with this game to basically say, we're going to choose for every choice that was available in the first game, we're going to choose the ones that players chose the most. So they used the data from the first game to say, okay, this is canon. So that was kind of jarring at first when I started playing. I was like, wait, do I not carry over decisions? And that can be probably confusing for new players, but they do a solid job of using flashbacks to conversations and stuff to say, hey, this is what happened if you didn't make this decision, or if you don't even know what the hell's going on. So
would you say this is a good jumping on point for someone who didn't play Elex 1 at all, but they're like, I'm interested, I'm curious what this is all about?
Yeah, I mean, from a story perspective, it's a pretty basic story, easy to understand, and the flashbacks do enough to help. Like, as you meet each companion, there'll be a flashback of like how you met them originally and kind of their storyline and stuff like that. So they don't force you to play the first game, which is probably a 40-hour endeavor if you're not a achievement poor like me.
Or if you hate yourself, just go ahead and play it.
And then I will call out RoboQuest on Games Pass. If you have Games Pass, if you enjoy multiplayer games, it's on Games Pass. Pick it up. It's fucking awesome. So,
hell yeah. All right, well, that's Elex 2 if you're curious about that. I think that's on all the major platforms, right? Like PC, PlayStation, Xbox.
Yep.
Yeah. Stretch, do you want to tell us about your low Wang?
Yeah.
That's right.
I've been getting
Wang.
into some Shadow Warrior 3. I had a real blast playing it. I wasn't much of a PC gamer at all growing up, or like wasn't as much into like the boomer shooters and stuff like Doom, Duke Nukem, so on and so forth. So it was actually super neat to get into this, and after coming off a whole bunch of like a lot more heavier in-depth experiences, like Pokemon, and I'm already blanking on what other games I've played this year.
Elden Ring?
It was before Elden Ring. But yeah, after having a whole lot of... Oh, Dying Light 2. Yeah, I had like just come off a week-long bender of Dying Light 2 and Pokemon Legends Arceus to dive into a linear 10-hour experience just running through some enemies, shooting, slashing, blowing them up. It was really fun and relaxing. And I also spent a whole bunch of time hunting down the upgradable orbs and stuff. I didn't have any context whatsoever on the rest of the story, but it seems like where Shadow Warrior 2 ended up with like the freeing of the dragon, the destroying of the organization and stuff. Shadow Warrior 3 starts off with like a pretty reset ground zero. Like, there's a big, huge dragon in the sky. We're gonna go kill it. Here's the MacGuffin that we need to carry to it. And then you just kind of start from there, and it's all pretty basic and just a lot of fun. Shot a lot of people.
Now, all the screenshots and gameplay I've seen, it's like all guns, but do you have your sword?
Yeah, at any point in time, like, I was playing on keyboard and mouse, so at any point in time, left click is always shoot with the guns, right click is always to like immediately whip out your sword. They do a really cool thing as well that shooting at enemies, the enemies will drop health, but if you cut enemies with your sword and kill them that way, then they drop ammo. So it actually really does a great job. And of course, as soon as one gun is out of ammo, the game will auto hotkey you to the next weapon in your arsenal. There's no like, trying to left click and you've got like a flashing message on the screen saying no ammo.
Mm-hmm. So it does the Doom Eternal thing where like your different ways of attacking give you different resources. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it really pushes you to play in a variety of ways, depending on what's going on. But it's just a fun game to tear through. The comedy, while crass, and that seems to be the trend of the games as well.
The dude's name is Wang. Yeah,
I guess.
And there's a lot of Wang jokes in the second one too.
The comedy landed like 90% of the time. And there was like some like weird scat humor in there as well. And it's like, that's pretty funny.
And this is from the guy who makes the worst fucking jokes in Slack.
Yeah, and
I don't know if he's got that title, but
is that you? Are we fighting for who has the worst jokes?
How that might be the most insulting thing I've ever heard about me.
Bob doesn't even make jokes.
I've nailed it. That's right. I'm just
serious
truth bombs.
Editor.
That's right.
He's just the old man on his
open up
rocker.
Slack.
Everybody's talking in Slack, and he's just over there. You fucking kids.
For an achievement person like myself, there were a couple of things that definitely frustrated me about the game. No level select, and no way to tell like what is left in what level. There is a new game plus kind of like you'll go to start the new game plus and it will say warning, none of your save anything carries over, but your upgrades do carry over. So I'm not really sure what they're talking about there. But just like a linear shooter without a level select just seems odd. Hopefully that will get patched in at some point.
Yeah.
Just like the idea of like, oh man, that one level was really cool. I guess I should play the whole game again.
It'll only take you 10 hours, I guess.
Well, that was 10 hours of me playing and religiously hunting down collectibles, to which I only missed 7 out of the entire game. So you could probably get through it in 4 to 5 if you were really hustling. But also like to play 3 hours to get to one level of a game that you want to play is still kind of weird.
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
No, Shadow Warrior 3 is one of those games that's like was on my radar for this year, but since there's like so much shit coming out, like literally last Friday, Gran Turismo 7 and Triangle Strategy, right? Like there's a lot going on. So it's kind of like fallen by the wayside, but I enjoyed 1. I didn't like 2 as much, but I thought it was like kind of fun. So I might pick up 3.
The gist I got was that 2 went a whole lot more open worldy.
It got
at least not open world, but less linear.
Yeah, it got all about like loot was the second one. So they like did the Borderlands thing where it's like you get like there's a billion guns, but it's just like this, like it's the same gun but with like one slightly tweaked stat or something like that.
Like this one's red and this one's pink. Ooh, unique weapons. And I know that Shadow Warrior 2 is also on Game Pass right now.
Is it?
So I have got that. Yeah, I have got that downloaded to my Xbox, and if I get any time to breathe and play some video games for myself, I do plan to load that up and give that a bit of a shot.
Yeah, I'm hoping to like get to Shadow Warrior 3 this year eventually, just to like check it out and see. And if you're interested in it, you can read a review on our site. I think Alex reviewed it for us, so you can check that out.
He's a new writer though.
Very new.
That's a joke only we get.
Yes, and that's the best kind of joke for the podcast.
Alex was our reviews editor. He left to pursue full-time employment at another publisher and came back like 2 months ago, maybe. So
he's a new writer.
He has to restart his entire.
That's right.
The hazing begins again.
The hazing begins again.
He was dead to us, and now he's back alive. Is he Jesus?
Scrappy,
Anyway,
how has pulling your hair out to Elden Ring gone?
Dude, I am in love with this game. I didn't expect, like, I knew I would like it just because, you know, it's open world Dark Souls, of course. But this is just one of those games where it's like, I can't wait to be playing it. Like, I don't want to be working so I can play it, that kind of thing. Yeah. God, it's honestly, it's Skyrim. I think that's the comparison I'm going to make. It is a Skyrim game because back when Skyrim originally came out in 2011, right? Like back before it became a meme. You know, it had that energy of like, oh, did you find this thing? No, where'd you find that? And it's like, no, yeah, it's over here in this cave. But what about this thing over here? Did you see that? You know, there's like always something neat to discover. And Skyrim's always felt like one of those games where you're not going to see everything unless you play like 400 hours of it. Mm-hmm. And at some point you have to be okay with that. Elden Ring is that, but through the lens of Dark Souls. I don't think I'm going to see everything in this game. I've already gotten through like the first like main dungeon. Like I beat one of the first lords you fight. And so I feel like I've explored that castle completely and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to move on. Then I've been watching my roommate play and he sees some shit that I haven't even seen in that castle. I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to see everything in this game. And I have to be okay with that.
Have you found the weird octopuses on the beach yet?
Oh yeah. They're like all over. I've killed quite a few.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, they're like bloodborne, fucking, you know, Lovecraftian
like eldritch writhing masses.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean it's like as an example of just the shit you can find. I found this cave near the starting area. It's the coastal cave. And I went through it. You fight a boss at the end and it's whatever, right? It just seems to be one of those like side things you do. And then it led to this, like there's the end of the cave and it opens up. And you end up on this island off the coast, and you can't get to it any other way unless there's like a paraglider. How you get there. Yeah, when I first saw that, I was like, oh, do they give you the paraglider like in Breath of the Wild or something? But no, it's a cave, right? And then when you get there, there's like this dragon church, right? And I was like, okay, I don't know what this is for, but whatever. There's a bonfire here. I'll take it, and then I'll fast travel somewhere else. And then when you kill a dragon, you get a dragon heart, and you can use the dragon heart at the dragon church to get powers. And you know what? You don't have to do any of that shit. You can beat the game without that, I'm pretty sure.
What kind of powers?
Like you can turn into a dragon.
What?
Yeah. I mean, they did that in Dark Souls 3 too. Like your head can turn into a dragon and breathe fire or stuff like that. But yeah, it's like that's a side thing that you can find 5 minutes from the beginning of the game. And you didn't have to find it, but you could. And I'm pretty sure I'm saying this right now and someone out there is listening and they're like, no fucking way, I gotta go do that. I didn't even know you could do that. I've already beaten the third boss, like the third major boss, and I haven't even done that yet. Like that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be the biggest staying power of Elden Ring. It's just that I bet you even in November, December, when people are talking game of the year, or people are still going to be discovering some shit in this game.
Like for lack of a better term, it's like the kind of playground rumor kind of game.
Yes.
The kind of game that like everyone will return back to the conversation and say, well, I saw this, I saw this, I saw this.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be one of the, like if we were all in like middle school right now, I'd be like, you know, you can find a gun in this cave somewhere. You know, it's that sort of thing where you can just like almost make up shit and it's almost believable because of just how much there is.
If you beat Smash Bros 100 times on the hardest difficulty, you'll unlock Supersonic.
Mm-hmm. Your character turns into Sonic.
Yeah, that was a big one on my playground.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, Elden Ring too. I think what's really fascinating about it right now is that I think this is the biggest launch for a Souls game, or at least it's one
100%. Yeah,
right. Like it's definitely huge, and I think that's really coming through in the messages people leave. Like for one, there's a lot of messages, and it's
path
great.
Ahead.
Yeah, hidden path ahead. I've yet to find one, but I've hit every wall that like.
Please touch butthole.
Finger butthole.
That's it.
Is great. There's also like I've seen a lot of grass mentions, like touch grass sort of stuff. It's so stupid but great. And like so there are the notes that are actually helpful, like, you know, be wary of right, and then like you turn the corner, there's an enemy on the right, you know, like that sort of stuff. So there is helpful notes, but then they're really like stupid juvenile game. Ones. It kind of is a strand type game.
Oh no.
Think of it.
Strand game.
It is. But I think just seeing all these notes is great.
That's the TR podcast trifecta, right? Game Pass, Nomura, and Kojima.
Bingo. Bingo.
We did it. And I mentioned the porn earlier.
Yeah, bingo, we did it.
So Scrappy, I've been playing a bit of Elden Ring. I'm not a huge Souls person, and this one still has not clicked with me. But like it's so funny that I feel like the open world, like as soon as you get the spectral whistle, any open world combat just becomes negligible.
Yeah,
as you can like spin around on the horse. And I mean, I guess it gives players an avenue if they're more inclined to cheese their way through a Soulsborne. Have you been doing a lot of the mounted combat, or will you approach a settlement and get down off the horse and like go through it with your pride and your sword,
the old school way?
Yeah,
no, I
like a real
depends.
gamer.
If I'm going into like an actual like encampment, like where there are a lot of walls and shit, I get off the horse just because I feel like the horse combat is good in an open field, but when there's a lot of obstacles in your way, like I think it gets in the way more than it helps, is how I feel. But if it's just open space, yeah, you can fuck people up with the horse. I like doing that. It's fun.
Yeah, in that like that very first little ruined little set of ruins where like if you go to the left up the hill, there's the giant ogre thing that jumps off the hill. There was the dude with the shield and the pole arm that just continually would wreck me, and then I got the whistle, and it's just like, oh, I'm killing him repeatedly now, dancing around him, no nothing. But then it kind of also felt like, well, if the only way that I'm having a bit of fun playing this game is by just cheesing it and like doing donuts on my horse while swinging wildly, it just still felt odd.
I don't know. I think there's something about Elden Ring where to bring up the difficulty in games debate, right? It's Miyazaki has always been really like bullheaded about we're not going to make our games easier, like unless we want to, but like we're not going to do it for the sake of doing it, because challenge is a core part of it. I think I agree in that it's such a hard game that you're going to look for any way to cheese it, right? Like, or anything that can make it a little easier for you, right? Like, I've been gravitating toward a blood loss build because like you hit them enough times and then you just do a huge chunk of damage, and it's like that's easier to me and I can do that fairly confidently than like a more hardcore build or some shit like that, right? In the same way that like you're gravitating toward the horse because it's just the easiest way you can get through it right now, right? And I think it's
press R1 to win.
Yeah, basically. I think that's where the fun of Dark Souls comes from, and the fun for Elden Ring comes from, is that idea of like it's a genuinely terrifying game sometimes, not because of the eldritch horrors, but because that eldritch horror could kill you and then you're going to lose all of your souls. That's what makes it scary, and it's just whether that experience is for you is kind of up to you to decide, right? So that's why, like last week I said, I don't think that Elden Ring is going to convince anyone who hated Dark Souls to love Dark Souls, but the open world is very good and very enticing.
Yeah, like the exploration, the finding the nooks and the crannies is all really cool. Like especially, I think it's in that same seaside cave that you were talking about, that it's like, the first part of that cave, it's pitch black and there's a whole bunch of wolves just in the dark. And if you walk forward without a torch, and you literally fall into a den of wolves.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is definitely neat. It's just then when it comes down to, the combat and like, I'll admit I suck at playing Souls games. I'm much more of a fast paced hack and slash Kingdom Hearts style combat than a, what do you mean I need to stop pressing the attack button to raise a shield?
Yeah, it's definitely like it's still Dark Souls. I think like when I introduce it as open world Dark Souls, it's truly that to a T,
Yeah.
I was one of the people that you saw everybody on Twitter like, oh, maybe this one will be different for me. No, it has not been.
But hey, the hype engine has been huge for this one. The FOMO has been ridiculous.
I was hoping that I would, no.
I keep seeing people...
I'm not fucking garbage.
I keep seeing people tweeting about a really good grind spot. So I'm probably I
need to take advantage of that because
I'm probably gonna go and check that out, power level a little bit, and then check out the rest of the game a bit more.
I mean, if this means anything, the first time I actually enjoyed a Dark Souls game, I had to do the grinding too. And then after that, I was like, okay, now I get it, and everything kind of clicks. Because like there is a little bit of muscle memory to Dark Souls, but like muscle memory can only get you so far, right? Like,
Yeah.
if that dude can one shot you, you're gonna get hit and you're gonna die probably. So
Definitely, if you're me.
yeah, exactly. And then you see those videos or those gifs of people who are like ultimate pros at Dark Souls and like dodge roll perfectly and like all that shit, and it's like, okay, whatever.
Seeing people taking out like that Marguerite boss by like moving minimally, like the 2 spear throws come out at the start of the battle and they just like sidestep half an inch either way. It looks like Ultra Instinct.
Yes, they activate Ultra Instinct.
Yeah, it looks so cool, and it's like, oh, I wish I could do that, or I wish I could be bothered to learn how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything that's really cool about the game is that when you watch videos like that, it makes you want to play it, right? Like it makes you want to get good enough to play those things. But I mean, that level of skill is like really hard to attain. But there's something
the
about
hype engine is there.
Yeah, and there's something about taking down the bosses. Like when you see a video of someone like take down a boss, like it looks so fucking cool. Because all the bosses in this game look really cool.
I guess that's exactly what Miyazaki is going for, like that knowledge of you can be a random Joe Schmo watching a clip of Dark Souls and see even a basic bit of combat go well and be like, wow, that was like, I know that was tough.
But it looks so cool.
That FromSoft jank to it.
The heaviness, the slowness. Yeah, there's a little bit of Sekiro in this game, but not enough where I would say like you're fast, you know? Yeah. Otten, how are things going in the Forbidden West?
Well, I am withstanding the waves of FOMO. They have not captured me and will not for Elden Ring. But, I got to carry the Forbidden West torch because everybody's, on to Elden Ring now and it's getting forgotten about.
Sorry, Breath of the Wild what?
Yeah,
so you're saying it's the Forgotten West?
Yeah. So there's still so much of it I have to do. I feel like I hit a moment where it had its Breath of the Wild moment where like you step out and you see the world kind of thing. And I was like, oh, so did I just basically just do the prologue? And I'm like 20 something hours into it or something.
Is this like, after the thing I mentioned last week?
Yes.
Oh my fuck.
Yeah, so he knows what I mean. It's quite a ways into. I was like, oh, okay. So now the real game starts.
Oh god damn it.
And I think I'm really enjoying Forbidden West quite a lot. I think mileage is going to vary for people of how much they get invested in the lore of it. Not even necessarily the story of it, but just like learning more bits about the world and stuff. Because I think that's where it's really does really well. Although I mean, I'm fighting the I just totally forgot their name. The fucking robots around.
The Zoogles.
The Zoogles. Fighting them is a lot more fun this time around. I feel like they're a lot more difficult and dynamic and have things going for them. So that's pretty fun. But I think that it's definitely like, all right, can like we be done with this open world stuff now? Like, I'm ready to move on. Like, it's
that open world fatigue.
Yeah, and I remember before I started playing, I said I'm really worried about that being a problem for me because the map is so big and there's so many points of interest, and there's just not all of them pay off. That's like, oh, okay, I guess I did the thing, but who gives a shit? Like, kind of feeling sometimes like, okay, I did that point of interest, but who cares? And that's not to say that I think Forbidden West is bad in any way or like it does it poorly compared to other games. It's just the nature of what it is.
Just the sheer number of games that
we've lived with this formula for how long now? Like well over a decade at this point, and it's like I'm just kind of done with it. It's a lot of padding of time, just traveling to and from somewhere. That's just padding time. And then getting to the to and the from isn't interesting enough. Like it can be interesting. Like you can stumble across some stuff and do cool stuff if you want. but there's not that much. And so something like, I guess to compare it a little bit to Ghost of Tsushima, which I really, really enjoyed, but it had a certain vibe to it. And exploring the world and just kind of soaking it in, the atmosphere really hit with me. I know it didn't with everybody. But it had the same problems. Like there was just too much stuff around. Too big. And so I think we're hitting that feeling that it's just, I don't know, it's definitely a fatigue. Because like I'm thinking of something like a God of War, which was open worldy, but wasn't. You know what I mean? Like I'd love something more in the vein of God of War, 2018's God of War, where there's definitely some exploration. You can run around and check out some shit, and like the world, the best part of that world is that it changes over time as you play it and you explore it, like significantly changes. That's definitely, I would love to see more of a hybrid of that, where you're still getting the like sense of I'm in this big thing and I can go here and see what that thing is. But also, it's a lot more guided of an experience in terms of we know the developers know what they want you to experience and have crafted something, rather than, oh, here's a thing, and I guess you can go fight a thing or jump up to this thing. I definitely would like to see more God of War style, if that's where we're going to keep the open world kind of feel, because it's a lot more honed. Where this is like they made a big map and then just kept throwing shit at it.
Right. Like all the question marks.
Yeah.
The God of War map kind of, you had like the hub area at the center of the lake, but really at each point you spread out, it was practically a level. Like it
more or less.
It almost followed like a Crash Bandicoot-esque level design and level style. Between a home base and like the different portals that you can branch out to.
I think that's a very good, I don't know, compromise is not the right word, but that's a good jumping off point if you want to capture that feeling of, okay, we want this open world exploration to feel like you're crossing vast distances or seeing new, environments or whatever. Like we still want that in a game, but I would definitely like a little more of a honed experience. Because people like to say, compare stuff to Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was mostly empty also, if we're honest with ourselves. Like there wasn't a lot of stuff in it. But it was interesting in how they let you interact with stuff. And a lot of games don't have enough of that going on, where there's just a free-form amount of mechanics where just learning and trying new shit is the game. And that's not what most of these games are. They have like, here's our systems. You must engage with these systems. And here's a kind of playground to play with them. And that's what we've been doing. And
what definitely helped Breath of the Wild as well was that fact that they give you everything within the first 2 hours.
Yep.
And then it's just go be free. Like I'm sure in Forbidden West there's all kinds of like plot progression, additional abilities.
They kind of give you everything right at the go.
Oh, they do?
More or less.
Like once you do the embassy, you pretty much have everything you need.
I think even before that, you have just about everything. Like you go through that and you end up with quite a bit.
I mean, I'd say the paraglider is pretty key to unlocking a lot of fun in the game.
That's true. Yeah. But like, the beginning of it, you have what's it, 5 different talent trees you can put skills in, and they all kind of like suited towards, okay, it helps this kind of weapon or this kind of weapon, and you can have all those weapons right away. Like if you wanted to, like, okay, this is the main thing I want to use, go for it if you wanted to. That was actually very refreshing. I was like, okay, because I expected that okay, now I've unlocked the rope caster. Now I've done this. Now I've done the scripted battle to where I learned how to use this thing. And now I've done but there was a couple of those, like at the beginning to kind of just get you into it. But then it was like, all right, buddy, have fun. Just figure it out, I guess. And that's very refreshing that did that. That was one of the things I liked a lot about Forbidden West so far, is that it's just assumed, okay, you probably played Zero Dawn. We don't need to spend a ton of time get you back into shit. It assumes you have a fair amount of knowledge about stuff, and I think that has made it successful. It successfully did that, and without making it feel like, because I think there's a tendency to have way too many tutorials in games, and this doesn't. I don't think it does anyway.
Right.
But I'm enjoying it.
That's good.
I'm still gonna play it.
I definitely want to get back to it just because I want to see what happens with the the plot, kind of. I think I am interested enough to like. There's enough of a thread there that I want to keep pulling at it to see where it goes. But I think if I do go back to it, I might just mainline it. I don't know if I'm gonna,
Yeah, I don't think that there's so like. Well, I remember talking about before it came out is that the worst part of Zero Dawn is the side quest by far, no question. And then I was reading a bunch of people saying, "Oh, the side quests and stuff are so great in Forbidden West," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll believe when I see it." And so far, I haven't really seen it. Like I've done some, and it's like, okay, I guess that was fine enough. They have done a really good job. I will give them credit for with the side quests of building out the world more. There's a lot of lore stuff that's neat. That you'll learn from it, but in terms of like, wow, that was a really great quest line of beginning, middle, end story kind of bit or whatever of its own contained thing. Not a lot of that. Not much of that happening. So I think you definitely could just mainline it and have fun with it.
Yeah, I think that might be the goal because I like when I think back to my time with Forbidden West, like, it's another one of those games where you can explore and you're supposed to find cool shit. But I've yet to find, like, I didn't find anything that was cool enough where now when I'm playing Elden Ring, I'm finding all sorts of cool shit, like shit that actually is genuinely exciting. Like, and there wasn't like a question mark pointing me in that direction. It's just like, you just find it. Right. Yeah.
Well, and that reminds me of a thing that I am finding irritating with Forbidden West. There's a lot of gated stuff. Like you come across a blocked path all the time. Like, okay, I guess I'll come back when I can do the thing to unlock this thing.
You must return with the blue key.
Based more or less, and it's like, okay, I guess I'll get that later. And it's getting really annoying with something that's like, okay, because sometimes it is like, ooh, that's something fucking weird. What's back there? Oh, I can't know that yet. Apparently, I can't see that thing. That's getting irritating with how many of those there are on the map already for me. Yeah, and some that aren't marked. It's like there apparently at some point there's got to be some upgrade to where you can breathe underwater longer, because there's quite a few places I've run across where it's like, yeah, you can't do shit here because you can't hold your breath that long. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I remember I noticed that because like they do the thing where like, before you get the thing where you can blow up the red crystals, like they mark it on your map like this is the thing you can't do yet, right? And it's like, okay, it's nice that they do that from a like checklist perspective, so that way I know once I get that power, like I know exactly where to go to come back to it. But it's also like, do we really need all of that? Right.
Well, it's like, and I would be more fine with that. It's like, okay, I've run across like one or two of those and then I unlocked it. But no, like this one I think I have 10 marks on my map. 10, 12, maybe more. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just do all of these when I get it.
I guess this is kind of what I was talking about with Breath of the Wild, was that there was nothing that you could approach that you wouldn't be able to immediately do.
Yeah.
Like even so much as, people can head straight from the Great Plateau to Ganon's castle.
Go kill Ganon right away.
Beat the game. Those kind of like artificial blocks, like, oh, there's a big ravine in front of me, but there's a target hanging on a stick above it. I guess I'll wait to get a grapple hook at some point in the game.
Yeah.
But no, it just sounds like it's more like arbitrarily locking you out of stuff, which
so
can
far,
definitely...
sure, because especially the like we're talking about the blowing up red rocks things, the fire gleam. I have not found anything behind them other than like, here's some random resources.
No,
it's never done anything super interesting.
Or like there's that one ruin, I think it's the second ruin you'll probably come across.
It'll get you into some stuff maybe, but it doesn't really do a whole lot for you.
Yeah. I mean, like whenever I think of the limitations in Breath of the Wild, I think it's like, oh, I don't have enough stamina to climb this, right? Or like not enough stamina to paraglide my way across that ravine. And for some reason, those limitations feel okay because I know the exact path I need to go to like reach it. Whereas with Horizon, it's like when I first saw those red rocks, I'm like, okay, I know I can't do this. I have no fucking clue what to do to be able to do this.
Yeah, just assume that at some point in the story I'm going to unlock the thing.
Right, so it just kind of feels worse because it's like it just leaves you in the dark. Like in the same way right now we're Auden, you don't know when you're going to be able to breathe in water forever, right? Like
no clue.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so that kind of sucks.
Yeah. And like I have a couple of side quests. I was like, I did a portion of it, and then I got to it's like, yeah, you can't breathe long enough here, and I'm like, oh. Well, why the fuck did you let me do the first part of the quest, you fuckers?
Well,
like,
goodbye.
yeah. And so now I got to remember, okay, I've got that hanging around, or maybe I missed something, which I doubt. But that's just what I mean. Like, Forbidden West got a bunch of cool stuff for it, but it's also got all these old systems and old design philosophies and old design ideas that we've been carrying with us now forever that I just would really like to see die because they're not fun and they're just bloat a lot of the times. It's like even if like we take back to I even said this in my Witcher 3 review. I said, all right, we've seen this formula done to a really well done, really well executed, and I'd say it still holds up because most of the stuff that you do run across is kind of interesting or has a story or something attached to it. Not everything; it's got a lot of the bullshit too. But I said that was 7 years ago that came out, so it's like, man, I was done then. Apparently, I was like, all right, we've achieved it. Let's move on to this new shit.
And we're still there.
And we're still doing it. And it's just like, boy, I don't know. It needs something like these kind of games are definitely going to resonate with people depending on how much you enjoy the world or story or atmosphere. Because that's how it was with Ghost of Tsushima for me. I don't know why that hit me so like perfectly. Because it definitely has similar problems, but I don't know. Maybe this is also one of those things where because of the nature of who we are and that we cover games and play too many games, that maybe this is just a unique problem.
Yeah, like we've seen it too many times.
We've done it too much. I don't know, but it just feels like it's time to move on from this kind of stuff.
Well, because when I think too about like, oh, that's a thing you can't do yet, I think too to like God of War 18, right? Like I think there are those doors with like the mirror lock, and you have to like tap it a certain way, like with that chisel, and you don't get that till halfway through the game. But it's like, I guess that didn't bother me as much because God of War is so small compared to the size of Horizon, right? Like map wise, and the story's smart enough where you're going to be like you're going to be revisiting these doors multiple times in different ways. Yeah. Right. So like you're eventually going to come across most, if not all of them on your own organically. So it doesn't feel like a checklist, but more like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Well, right? It's not just checklist stuff, but like something like God of War, everything was bigger in terms of the reward of what you got. It's not like I have a bunch of these little things where I go up to it and it's like, oh, I got some more wood and a string or whatever out of this chest.
It's like the limitation of the open world games used to be what hardware they were on. Now we're at the point that the hardware isn't a limit, and those worlds just have continued expanding and getting bigger and bigger. But at no point someone's like held back and gone, "Whoa, like let's maybe tone it back. Let's refine it. Let's see what's working, what's not working." And
what is if we're wanting to incentivize exploration or checking out this point, what's the reward for that? You know what I mean? Like, what am I being rewarded with, really? And so far, a bunch of them, it's for a lot of open world games, it's not a lot. So, like you're saying with like God of War, it's like, okay, you know that nothing in this has been like pretty trivial. Like, whenever I do something, like there's some fucking cool behind this thing, whatever it is. Right. It's not just I opened a chest and found some fucking lame shit. It's something neat, or some gameplay thing, or some combat encounter, or something that's interesting.
Yeah, like God of War had all those like really awesome armor pieces, the upgrade points for the armor, and then there was the whole Valkyrie side quest as well that was just like
rad.
You get to fight this badass boss every time.
Yeah, and this when you have so many points to fill, not all of them are going to be interesting, and it's. I hope that somebody has a thought, because I know a lot of what they're thinking is, okay, that adds more time to the gameplay. People are going to be playing this
500 hours. Dying Light 2. Yeah, 500 hours.
They hear that, and that's also the other thing. It's like, man, how long do we really need a lot of these games to be? Like, people loved Mass Effects, and you remember Mass Effect was like 20 hours, and it's like, that felt like, all right, that's a good AAA game length for a big story.
There was still a lot to do in Mass Effect too, even with that shorter.
That's what I mean, yeah. And like, there's a lot to do, and it's like, why do I don't know? Those feel like a good life. Or like we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy earlier. That wasn't super long, and it was self-contained, and there you go. It's fantastic.
Yeah, like sometimes there's room for nice little smaller experiences, linear experiences, right?
And then obviously you're talking about Elden Ring. There's room for the big open world innovate like things to do a game that way too. You just have to think about it in a different way, I think.
And just even how much is fighting for gamers' attentions as not only are games getting bigger and longer, but we're also just seeing so many more games. Us over here at TechRaptor have been getting destroyed by all of these March releases and like what we're expecting coming forward. Yeah. And we're, only at the start of March of a new year. We're already drowning. So like the idea of having a game that is going to proudly announce that it's going to try to take 500 hours of my time, it's like that. I would be afraid of that not being a marketing point for how much good content is in my game, but a warning to people to say, if you don't have 500 hours of your life, and I'm someone who plays video games for fun and for writing and stuff, but the kinds of people who enjoy video games but only have 2 hours to play a week, it's like 500-hour game is going to take them years.
Yeah, well, this is also within those. We're not. A lot of us here don't play them pretty religiously, but it's on top of all those games as a service games or just multiplayer games in general, which are kind of the bread and butter for time sinks for people. Obviously, why they play them is very different, but if that's your main thing, is that you're playing Fortnite or you're Destiny 2 person or whatever the hell it is, and you like to play single player stuff in between, are you going to be like, all right, I spend all this time in this one game, am I also going to want to spend 100 hours in this other game?
Yeah,
or whatever. So it's a lot of competing for your time, and it's just some of them. It's like, man, it's way too long.
I mean, like, I fully intended to play some triangle strategy because that looks interesting to me.
Yeah.
But Elden Ring is just taking on. Like, I know realistically, even if I bought triangle strategy day one, I'd probably be playing Elden Ring instead. Like,
I've only seen brief comments and criticisms about triangle strategy. My Twitter feed hasn't really had anything for it, but what I have heard is also just like the amount of dialogue could be cut in half and still get the message across. Whether that's true or not is another thing, but that seems to be the sentiment that my timeline is giving me.
Wait, did the Trails in the Sky people make this?
They might have. No, I mean, I do want to get to it eventually, but I mean, hey, and then in the next fucking week we've got Limp Bizkit featuring Final Fantasy going on, and then the week after is nuts too. It's like,
wait, is that next week?
Next Friday, yeah.
Next Friday's
next Friday from when we're publishing this episode.
Okay. So, that's right. It's like so. It's
March
2 weeks.
18th.
March 18th. Yeah, it's March 18th.
Dude,
don't do that to me.
We all have to make sure that we just power through it that Friday night so that we.
Yeah, but real talk, yes, I exactly fucking want to play that game. Yeah, I just
that game looks like so stupid.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I'm in. It's Nomura, man. I know he's not the director or anything. It's a Nomura project though.
Mm-hmm.
So we
produced
have
by,
to,
right?
Praise be.
Mm-hmm. Well, were you gonna say something, Rhett? You good?
I was gonna say, since I'll be picking it up on PC after seeing the recent ports of some Final Fantasies, I'm a little worried.
It's okay. Strangers in Paradise ran like ass in high fidelity mode on my Series X anyway.
I forgot about that.
Fair enough.
Those clips, it did look like it just chugged.
Yeah.
Especially in like the forest area with all like the sparkly particle effects, like you could swing the camera and start counting the frames.
Mm-hmm.
That in like a high precision dodging game,
that's what you
easier
want.
Soulsborne. The amount of inputs that's gonna eat, and you're gonna die.
I forgot that that's also a Soulsborne.
Yeah, boy. So you're gonna put down. How many people do you think are going to put down Elden Ring to pick up the Final Fantasy Soulsborne?
I don't know.
If it's easier than Elden Ring, I'm sold. Because I'm going to pick it up again later. I'll probably quit after 15 minutes again.
It's much easier.
Yeah, I would say
it's got difficulties.
Mm-hmm. But I think that does it for this week's episode of the TechRaptor podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please feel free to leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below and let us know. How are you enjoying Elden Ring? What's the coolest thing you found in it? Did you find that dragon church thing I was talking about? Let us know in the comments below. Or you can go to our site, techraptor.net, where you can leave a comment on the post there as well, because we have a new commenting system that's pretty rad. We will also be back next week, but if you can't wait that long, you can go to our site, techraptor.net. We're always publishing reviews, features, news, etc., so you can stay up to date on all things gaming. But otherwise, we will be here next Monday. See you then.